Alright, what's up guys, it's Sully here. Welcome back to the next video within the Python Basics series. This is Python Basics episode 9, and today we're going to be covering file I/O. I think I lied to you guys. I said that we were going to cover classes in the next video, but we actually are going to cover file I/O in this video because it just, slipped my mind. I didn't know I hadn't covered file I/O yet, and it is a big part of object-oriented programming and classes when we get into that in the next episode after this. So I just want to start off with the definition of file I/O and what this basically encapsulates. So file I/O just stands for file, input, and output. The I, input, the O, output. So as you can imagine, this involves getting a file into our Python program or getting information from our Python program and sending it to a file. So this can be done in a few different ways, and a few different file types need different ways for this to work. Now today I'm going to be running through the basic inbuilt Python function for opening files, which is open, and I'm just going to show you all the different data types that open can read, and then at the end of the video we're going to go through a few unique and miscellaneous file types and how you might be able to read them as well. So we have our Python file open here, and I have a few demo files for us to read in or output to within this video. So this one's just called our text.txt, and it's just got a little sentence here. Hello, this is our text file. So we're going to attempt to read that into our Python program and then output it to the terminal. If you're following along with me, I recommend you make a .txt file as well. And you don't have to write exactly what I wrote here, but just write something so you can use it to follow along within this video. So the first thing we have to do is assign this entire file that we're going to open to a variable. Now, convention is to assign this to a variable named f, but you can name that anything you want. Once again, it's a variable, it's your choice, but when you want to call upon this file, it will be named that variable now. So say if you were to name this cat, and you open the file, and you assign that open file to the variable cat, whenever you want to call upon the file, you're going to have to use cat to call on it. So that's why convention is f, because f, when you call on it within the program and there's a lot of programming going on and there's a lot of code, f can kind of be like, hey, f or file, it's not ambiguous and it's easy to recognize. So we're going to do f equals to declare that variable f. And then here is us using the open function. So it's simply just open, obviously your brackets, and now the first parameter is the complete name of the file, and it wants this in a string data type, so we're going to use our 2 commas to use this file, and our file is our_txt.txt, which is this text file that I was talking about before. So if we want to open this, we simply just have to go our_txt, oh my bad, our_txt and .txt. It also wants the file type. So if it's a, like a Python file, .py, text file, .txt, CSV files, which we'll be going through in this video, that's .csv, and so on. Now, that's our first parameter. Now the second parameter is a bit of a funky one, which is the type of action that you want to do with this file. So because we're reading this file, we are going to be using R, and that's also as a string parameter. So what this whole line is basically done at the moment is we've assigned this entire line to a variable f, and what this variable f contains is a file that is being opened named our_txt.txt for reading mode. So only reading. So we can only read the contents of this file at the moment. We can't do anything else to it at the moment. For example, output within our file IO, we cannot do with this file at the moment because it's not in writing mode. We will go through writing mode in a minute, but that's the difference. Okay, now that we have our file, we can do things with it. So the most simple thing that we can do is to read the entire contents of the file. So how we can do this is using print, because that gets us to have the outputted within the terminal, and then f, which is calling on the file variable that we just made, and dot read. So if we run this, we will get the entire contents of this file within the terminal. So let's have a look. Here we go in the terminal. Hello, this is our text file. So there you have it. You've opened a text file within your Python program. Now I do want to add a special little bit of advice here. This will only work this way if this file is within the search path that Python already has. You can open files from any location, but to do that, you have to pass the entire file path into the first variable within the open function here. So if you want to open an entire file from an entire different location within your hard drive or your SSD within your computer, you just have to pass the entire path so it can search that directly. This is in my Python's default path, so it can find that in its default search path. So I can use just that txt file right there without any of the whole directory path code in front of it. But just keep your heads up on that. If you're trying to open a file and it's not working, that might be the reason why. Anyway, moving on, we have now successfully read a file and read the entire file. Now there's a few other methods that you want to know. There's reading a singular line. Now my default file only has one line, so we're going to get the same output anyway. But if yours had more lines, it would only read that first line within the file. This function is called readLine. If you run this, you get the first line of that file. So we got the exact same output. Our file only has one line. But if you had more than one line, you would only get the first line within that text file. Okay, the last one I want to cover is looping through each line of the file. This gives you options to do something to everything within the file, which is probably why you're opening the file in the first place. You want to do something to the contents of the file, right? So this uses a normal for loop. So we'll do for word, and then we want to loop through the file, which is held by that variable f. So for word in f, print word. So if we run this, we get the same output. So it's printing all the words. So now you can call on singular words. So let's see, we want to print the first word. Obviously that will be index 0 on computer logic. And if we run this, we get a H. So the first letter of the first word. So moving on, now we'll go into writing to a file. So writing to a text file. So we've gone through all the basics within reading a text file. Now let's do writing. So I'm just going to use that same text file, but all I have to do is change this R to W. You can feel free to create a new text file if you want, or you can use the default one that you've been using to follow along to this program. So now this is doing the exact same thing as it did before, but the only difference is it's opening it in writing mode, not reading mode. So it's in write mode. Okay, so we can use a similar function to the one before, and this one is called write instead of read. So how this one works is we use f, calling on that file variable again, but .write. Now you can pass a string within this function. and this will be what's going to be written to your file. So let's write hello world. Can't go wrong with hello world. Alright, so if we run this, we'll see what we get. Alright, you get no terminal output, but if you go look in your file, hello world now. Now, my other text has disappeared. Why? Well, it's because when you write to a file, it overwrites what was already there. There's another method called append, which is denoted by an A as its variable, which lets you append to the existing file. So you don't overwrite any of the data that's already there, you just add onto it. So to do this, we can change that to A. And you can use the same method to run this. And now we check our file. We have 2 hello worlds. So append normally uses most of write's functionality, as in the write method, write lines, and things of that nature. But the only thing it doesn't do that write does is overwrite what was already existing in the file. So that's a little tip there. It's probably exactly how you're going to want to do it. I doubt you'd want the file to be overwritten every single time that your program writes to it. More often than not, you want a sort of functionality like this where it's just adding to the file every time it runs. So now we're going to move on to working with another common file type known as a CSV file. CSV standing for comma separated values. So if we've gone through arrays, we've gone through lists, they would be known as comma separated values. They have a comma in between them. Basically 1, 2, 3, 4, these are comma separated values. A CSV file holds a bunch of these. So I've made a default little CSV file, which is this one here. It's just a random bunch of numbers separated by commas, so CSV. So to open a CSV, we're going to use mainly the same attributes, just with slight changes. f.open. Now we're going to write the file name in there again. This one's called our_csv.csv. And we want this one in read mode to start off with as well. So what we can do now is, let's see. What we want to do is import a module. And fun fact, this is kind of like importing a file anyway. So import CSV. So now we have the CSV module to use within our program. So do that at the top of your program, and now we can utilize the functionality of this CSV package, which is really powerful and really good to use. So this can stay the same, but now we need to declare something called a CSV reader. So I normally just call this reader, and this is a variable which contains csv.reader, and the parameter is the CSV file that it's going to be reading, which is in our case f, which is our file here. Alright, now that we have a CSV reader, we can use the kind of same functionality as we did with our txt files, just calling to the reader every time instead of calling directly to the file. So this could be for the line in reader to loop through our lines in our CSV file and print line. Now if we run this, here we go. We have a full given array from our file. So it's read our lines in and it's given us this output. Pretty cool, right? Now, some other funky things. I know this is a CSV file of comma separated integers. So if I want to have them as an array that I can use within this Python program, then I can do something like the following. So we're going to say for a line in reader, just like we did before. Now you want to do for value in line value equals in value. So now we're making sure they're all integers so we can append them to an array. We make an array up here. Let's say, just call it array. We'll just make it a list for now. And we do array dot append value. And we run this. No errors. So we can go ahead and print that out, see what we got, and you see what happens. There we go. Now we have that CSV file of integers as a list of integers within our program. Now we can now do things to it, like a normal list. So that's basically what CSV files are useful for. They're normally lists of data. Think if you had a list of employees, it's a list of each employee's data, and one employee might take up one line, as in all his data, another employee's data will be line 2, another employee's line 3, and so on. Okay, I'm going to leave the writing aspects of a CSV file to the next video in our classes, because the example and the whole class kind of program we're going to be building in that video encompasses a lot of that. So I'm going to leave it to that so I'm not repeating myself in 2 different videos. But this was just an introduction to the 2 main file types, being .text and .csv, that you might use within Python, and how you can read in these files and read in them as particular data you want. For example, this array of integers we have here. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope it covered the fundamental, real basics of file I/O in Python for you and how this kind of works. So I'm going to shut up now and let you guys all go. But it's been Sxlly, and peace.